Hello, and welcome to the Heathen's Journey podcast. I'm your host, Siri Vincent Plough, and I'm so glad you're here. This is the show where I explore heathenry through a queer lens. We will be talking about traditional witchcraft, runes, folklore, and so much more. Join us, won't you, as we journey to the ends of the 9 realms and back. Hello, and welcome back to the Heathen's Journey podcast. I am so very excited to share today's very special interview with you. In this interview, I'm speaking with Lindy-Fay of Wardruna and Johanna Elf of Cult Botanic. If you've listened to Wardruna, the incredible Norse pagan band, you have heard Lindy's voice. Wardruna describes themselves as a Norwegian music constellation dedicated to creating musical renditions of ancient Norse and Nordic traditions. As a vocalist, Lindy-Fay is deeply connected to primal energy and magical soundscapes. Wardruna uses recordings of water, the wind in the trees, and will use non-traditional instruments like rock and fire in their compositions, as well as ancient instrument reproductions. Of course, this just shows Lindy's connection to the natural world. She has a deep love of plants and specifically botanicals. In this interview, she talks about how she will use the scent from a specific plant to get into a certain mood for performing. I actually do much the same, using magical oils or essential oils to shift my mood or focus for the day. Johanna Elf is an herbalist originally from Sweden but living in London. She is the herbalist behind Cult Botanic, a brand that creates clean, natural plant-based products in support of overall well-being. Their focus is on everyday ritual, joining us in the moments when we take time to care for our bodies and minds. All products are unisex, vegan, nut-free, and cruelty-free. These two fantastic artists are collaborating on a new intention oil that will be out later this year. I can't wait to see and smell what comes of this collaboration. I am so excited to share this interview with you, where we will dive deep into the sensual world of botanic perfumery and the magic of nature.
For Siri's podcast.
Thank you so much, Lindy. Welcome, everyone, to the Heathen's Journey podcast. I am so excited today to have Lindy-Fay from the band that you may have heard of, Wardruna, as well as many other solo projects, and Johanna Elf. And we will be talking about the world of Nordic music, herbalism, and making magic with scent and sensuality. So first of all, I just like to allow all guests to introduce themselves. So why don't you both introduce yourselves?
Yes, I'm Lindy-Fay. Musician, vocalist. What can I say? That's me. I'm not good in introducing myself, I have to say. Yeah. Okay.
That's all right. And you, Johanna?
Hello, I'm from Sweden originally. I live and practice and work in London, UK. I make herbal remedies and natural herbal skincare products and natural perfumes. And my degree was like very science-based, like phytochemistry-based, but my personal angle is a bit more esoteric. So very ritual-based and mystical and intuitive. So those kind of two paths make up my brand and practice.
Fantastic. It's so lovely to have the both of you here. And I think that our listeners will be so curious to hear what brings the two of you together. So we have music and we have herbalism kind of coming together in your project. So how did you two meet and what are you collaborating on right now?
We were introduced by some people we both know that just thought that we should meet.
We got this common friends and friends of friends that thought, like, because Lindy's got this really hobby interest or like a passion for scent and perfume and like natural products, and then with like my brand and we shared similar interests, but then also I think we both got this like very intuitive way of working, and then with some similar backgrounds as well, because we're both Scandinavian. So I think that was just made it a really good, interesting match, which has been really, it was a really good foundation, really. And then just ideas and this project have just developed organically, really, from then on.
Yeah, I met you in London once already.
Yeah.
I met Johanna in London once already, and we were having our meeter outside. She showed me this wonderful park with, this is, you think maybe it's Boudica's grave here and there, and we were there in the misty evening. It's amazing. Then you just, the ideas just come down about what we are working about. It's,
it's like inspirational, like kind of nature walk. It's like the perfect meeting for us, really, isn't it? But I can talk about a little bit what we're working on now. So we've got we're doing like a small collection, really, because we're not 100% sure yet how many products we're going to end up making. So I suppose it could be called almost like a little collection. And it's basically a small collection of esoteric herbal products. So currently we are doing a little intention oil. So it's like a roller oil. And we're kind of midway creating it. And this can be used on the go to change a mood or to set a space, or more deeply as part of ritual work, or even as regular perfume. So that's kind of where we're at the moment.
So I will let you know that as a witchcraft practitioner, and also as somebody who just like in general loves perfume, I tend to love the like really herbal or like woodsy kind of dark scents. So I'm very curious to hear like what the scent profile of this is, as well as kind of like what botanicals you're using. Of course, don't give away any trade secrets. But I'm just so curious.
We have in common that we are interested in also herbal stuff like you are, but we have been diving a bit into what is in the Nordic nature where we grew up. What do we remember from?
In a way, we started working in such a conceptual way. We were like talking and just ended up bringing up, we both felt like it was super important to use plants and herbs and talk about herbs that are native to us and like are close to us physically and mentally. Herbs that we remember, or flowers we remember, or that in some way has a story, or that are close to us. And then Lindy might mention one, and then I'll have a story, and then I'll talk about one, and that'll lead to another story about maybe family or friends. And so it's been very much like that, like conceptual. And we've been talking about dreams and grounding and seeing, and like Lindy, you've talked before about scent being almost transportive, or the way that it can be transportive, right?
Yes, because I discovered that many years ago, when I was laying for a longer period of time sick, and in order to not get depressed, I was forced to be on my sofa for, I don't know, months for most of the day. And then I said, how can I go out in nature, which I love, without actually when I'm not able to walk out physically? And then I just said, I wonder if it's possible to sample perfume somewhere. And luckily I had this, I could Google it, and I found that there's a whole world of perfume enthusiasts out there, or like people who are interested in scents. And there are this own little shops that you could order samples online. So I started to do that, and I could just bring the nature inside into my own apartment, and a whole new, like I could do my daydreaming, which I'm with the scents, and now I want to travel to a tropical island, and I just went in and white flowers, this just it went until to be a hobby, to be a huge hobby by doing that. And I think to get transported by scent, it's very when you discover that it's possible, it can be interesting to just go on doing some research on it. I think at least it was for me. So.
And this is the kind of thing that rang so true with some of the stuff that I've been working on, and like especially the intention oils and the ritual oils and the perfumes that I've been working on, because I felt very similarly. Like I got such a big focus for me is the idea of everyday ritual, and I really believe that most people either actually have ritual in their everyday, but they don't really even know that that's what they're doing. But sometimes to make oneself feel better, or it could be anything, like having a bit more of a conscious cleansing regime, or taking a bath, or just lighting candles like we've done now, and or actually like drink tea, like what you're doing with your turmeric tea, just taking that bit of extra time to make that for yourself. And then also this idea of being able to create a space wherever you go. Like at one point I was traveling loads for work and staying in hotels a lot, and for me, like, my space is so important, and I always would bring like a candle and a crystal and a bit of like fabric and just try to make it my space. These things made it really possible for me. And so this, like, totally in the beginning when me and Lindy started talking, felt so like on the same page. And Lindy, you told me about some of your preparations. Then we talked about some of Lindy's preparations before shows.
Yeah, I have my own thing going on there. So it's if I have a bathtub, I always do. I find the most luxurious. That doesn't have to be expensive, but most organic, luxurious, like rose oils or something. Infuse the whole, but like just to feel like a queen or something like that. It's just a kind of mind game. But I do that, or if I'm tired or something, I'll go for citrusy or something spicy. So yeah.
Yeah, like pepper to like a bit more like vigorous scents.
Yeah, vigorous. Oh my God, it's just because it's late and I don't recall the names. But at least experiments. And then, of course, if I want to wind down, you have the classic lavender stuff. But this classic stuff that a lot of people know about already, but I always use it. Before concerts, I have my own ritual. And if you're on the bigger stages, I know I can put perfume on. But since we do all have scent memories, and I don't know if someone other in the band maybe have a bad scent memory of some stuff. It can be vanilla, for example. Maybe they have a bad memories about cookies from they were children. You never know, So I'm very careful if I'm in a closed environment to use perfumes, just because it's so important that everybody has their own space at stage, so they can give all they have, if you know what I mean. So if there is a very closed environment, I'm not putting on any perfumes. But if it's on big stage, I know that perfume most likely won't get to the others. So then I do some stuff like just on my own. Yeah, so that's my own little ritual. No, but Johanna, as you said, it's with taking to think about others. It's very important, I think, because the scent memory is so strong, but maybe many people don't realize it. But you realize it if you are in a space where you smell something that makes you feel uncomfortable, and also the other way around, of course.
That's actually something that I work with my students on a lot, because so I teach a lot of students, witchcraft or other things, and sometimes there can be a really big focus on, oh, you have to work with these specific plants for witchcraft, or this is the thing, like lavender is calming. But I know that, like a really widely used scent like that, it's very likely that people do have some scent memories, like you were talking about, Lindy. And so I never want to tell a student, you have to use lavender for, like a calming ritual if, perhaps that was their like abusive mother's favorite scent, for example.
Exactly. That's exactly. It's so important that because, it's very interesting, I think, those things.
And also quantities as well. It's like, not to be too technical either, but that's the thing with certain plants and herbs that have so much essential oils in them, like lavender, for example. It's very easy to, you hear this thing like, oh, put lavender on your pillow, but if you put too much, actually you won't be able to sleep, because then it's actually energizing.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing as well, that people are, it's so individual with sensitivity as well. So like you've got such a good story with the iris root, haven't you, Lindy? Like how some people are like, oh wow, it's amazing, and it's like feels quite grounding, like a lot of roots do. However, you told me about a perfume that contains so much iris roots that it was too much.
Yeah, because the scent itself, it's one called Iris Silver Mist by Serge, and it's said to contain the largest amount of iris on the market in one perfume. I don't know if it's true, but it's most likely pretty true, because it smells like powdery carrots, the whole thing. Anyway, it's a lovely perfume, but I put it on and I slept with that perfume on, and I had terrible nightmares. And I was thinking in the morning, this is interesting. Can it be that perfume, maybe? And I decided to try it again, not the day after, but a few days later. And the same happened. Terrible dreams. And then I was just thinking around it. Maybe it can be, since the profile of iris is like carrot powdery. Maybe it's just too close to the ground, and on the ground you're not supposed to sleep on directly, at least not in the northern countries. If you sleep directly on the ground, you will definitely get sick. So maybe it's just some kind of, I don't know, or like you, Johanna, said, it's something about you had another you had different thoughts on it. You said it was used in rituals somehow, didn't you?
With the iris root, I think there was I found a little bit of research, but it's one of those things, I feel like it's so common in perfume, especially at the moment. We've looked at some really popular scents, and there's iris root in a lot. So
yeah, it's just a little bit of it in most, but this particular perfume, it's loads of it. It's like overpowerful. But
yeah, so I wanted to kind of bring us back to this idea of scent as memory. I mean, I think that a lot of us have heard that, scent is one of the strongest memory receptors. And so I'm just curious, I personally do a lot of ancestral work. So if I ever found, neither of my grandmothers ever wore perfume, but if they had, keeping a bottle of their perfume on my ancestor altar, for example, would kind of transport me into that conversation with them. But yeah, I would love to hear any of your insights on different plants, maybe, or different scents that are particularly good for, invoking memories or recalling, bringing things to mind, other than your personal associations, as well as any ideas of scents that connect us to our families or our lineages.
I've got personally, like I use a mixture of things actually for that. I got rosemary is like a classic, isn't it, for memory in general. But also, I love rosemary. It's one of my favorite herbs to work with, even if it's in a mixture of other things as well. And then I also love bay leaf, which is quite nice to use for vision or communicating with your family. So I do personally sometimes on Sundays in particular, I might wear some of my gold jewelry, which I'm wearing now actually, which is from my father's side, that I inherited. And so I'd wear that, and then I'll make bay leaf, like I'll make a tea with bay leaf and Artemisia vulgaris, which is mugwort, and a little bit of rosemary. So that's a tea that I make. And then I sit and think about my family or talk to my dad, or so those are 3 of my favorite herbs to use for that. I don't know if you've got any, Lindy, that you would think of with memories or any scents maybe rather than herbs.
Yeah, then it goes more to perfumes, like you said already, Siri, that I also do that. It's like I have a perfume in my collection that I recognized when sampling. Oh my God, this is one of my aunts. I'm very fond of my aunts, and all of them actually. So it's one peculiar that I know she was wearing it in the 80s, and I was visiting her a lot, and I recognized that perfume, and so I got hold of that one. So I have these things like perfumes that reminds me about, but I don't have a particular. Other than that, I'm not. I've used more singing to get into. Like I did, for example, in the opening now of the podcast. It's like the Nordic Norway Sami culture, which I know that one of my great grandmothers were Sami, but I didn't know before I was 12 years old, because it was they have similar history as the Native Americans. So it was not allowed to be a Sami. Almost kids were taken away from their parents and stuff like that. But it's a tradition to sing. You can sing. You sing for others, or so you sing for the nature. You're calling someone, but you take it from your heart. It doesn't have to be like beautiful singing or whatever. You just come up with something there. So yeah, that was a bit on the sidetrack now. I think it's not about scent, but yeah.
I absolutely love that though, because I feel like it kind of connects that thread, right? Of, scent memories, like, the plant might have a very technical, technically it is associated with this thing, but it brings up something for me specifically. And I also think that that's a really beautiful segue kind of into talking about how we can develop relationships with plants. So it almost sounds like, as you are creating this sort of improvisation calling to the plants, that is another way of, getting to know the natural world and everything. So one of my strongest beliefs, and I haven't talked about this too much on the podcast yet, but I will be, is in animism, which is, the idea that plants, animals, even sometimes objects may have, their own spirit, their own soul. And so I think it's actually really important to develop relationships with plants the same way that you would. So for example, one of the plants that I'm working on developing a relationship with right now is birch. Because I know that birch is very significant in Scandinavian herbalism. So yeah, I guess this is maybe more of a question for Lindy, but how, both of you, how do you, cultivate relationships with plants? Living plants, and then, kind of like working with their essences, or working with, the plant from living to dried to, final tincture or perfume.
You, Johanna, you're making tinctures, but what I can say that I try to tend for plants. What can I say? It's I have this small garden now, so I have plants inside, and what I've discovered after I was back to nature again as an order, because I've been living in the city for a long time, and now I'm a little bit out of the city again, locally, and it is, as you said, I solidly believe that everything has some kind of a soul, and even plants, because I can sense it in a way when tending for plants, so if you can see that they are reacting somehow. If you I even have my a cat that she is like sometimes like sniffing on the plants and like stroking herself up to it, and then I discovered that that is sometimes when the leaves are kind of hanging, not hanging like, but it's slightly hanging, and the water, the plant needs some water, and I'm just that things like that just made me think that okay, maybe they communicate, and maybe animals can communicate with plants more than humans. I like things like that. But and also, like you said, with believing that maybe even stones have energies, or for example, in Sami culture, there were a lot of people who were treated like witches, like a couple of hundred years ago. A lot of them. We treated witches, and one of the things that was said then was that the Sami, they are witches because they are singing to the stones. So they are making songs for the stones. So that was one of the things that made. I don't want to use that words, but I'm using it anyway. Like good Christians say that these people are bad people, and yeah.
I believe in the spirit of plants, in the spirits of things that may not be living, as Lindy was saying, spirits of stones, that kind of thing. And so, how do you go about making relationships with specific plants, or even specific, like I'm making a relationship with birch? How do you do that?
I feel like it's also traditionally with some plants, it's like, which you probably know about as well, it's like this idea of asking permission to cut it. So I feel like that's a really, really great way to go about it if you are on a herbal hike or a nature walk, or if you're actually out foraging for herbs and plants yourself. Even if you're not sure, first of all, if you're not sure, never pick a plant if you're not sure like what it is, or you're allowed, or because some flowers are endangered. But in general, just to think in your mind that you're asking the plant or the earth for permission to pick it, I think is a really nice way to go about it. I really love what you said about having that, keeping the spirit of the plant, because that's also something when working with it. I mean, I love essential oils because they're so powerful and so strong and so fragrant, and it literally means the essence of the plant. But I think working with a plant from fresh, like foraging it yourself and then drying it and turning it each day to make sure that it dries in a nice way, and if you need to do that, or even like building your own drying set up, or and then drying it, then putting it in either like what you were doing with honey, or in oil, or doing an alcohol extract and letting it sit for weeks and turning it over and then filtering it and then getting the end product. It just feels like such a great way to be connected as well. For me, it's like really makes me put like part of the plant's journey. And sometimes I feel like, because a dried herb really is at its most potency for about a year. So like spices, herbs and spices, you can use spices for years, but they might lose their flavor a little bit. But medicinally, it's like fresh and then dried. Within a year, it's like they have their peak. However, if you make a tincture, they found tinctures that were good to use that were 100 years old. So in a way, it's almost like I feel like it's the way of not just prolonging the life of the herb, but actually almost making it like immortal somehow. And so then using that as part of products, I just love that process and the idea of that, really.
So let's talk a little bit more about Scandinavian herbalism. It's something that I don't hear as much about. That's probably because I'm an American, not living in Scandinavia, of course. But what are some of the foundational herbs in Scandinavian herbalism? And also kind of like I don't know, like, are there any differences between like Scandinavian herbalism and other, herbalism, or is it kind of like the focus on where you live, local plants, that makes it more of a Scandinavian herbalism?
It's a really good question, Celia, and I've thought about this before, and because I studied herbalism in Sweden, focusing on Scandinavian herbs and plants, but I also live and work here in the UK, which has such a long and rich history of folklore and folk medicine and herbalism. So for me, they go hand in hand a lot, but also it's really interesting to see comparisons because the one thing that comes to mind straight away in Scandinavia is trees are really important to us, and obviously we have an abundance of trees. Like, we're so lucky to come from a place which like vast forest, and even like our words for garden has got tree in it, because trees used to be like the main center point of Nordic gardens, and like the respect for trees. That's why it's so lovely that you said you're working with birch, because we can really resonate with that. So that comes to mind first, but then I know that trees are really important here in the UK as well. But people have their own angle or their own take on that. But I think, and like birch is such a good example. So thought we can talk a little bit about birch, how it's been used medicinally for ages, and it's such an amazing antioxidant and like good for detox to drink tea from birch leaves. But also in Scandinavia, which is why I even thought about it in the first place, we have for generations washed with birch. So in saunas we have birch bundles that you kind of like whip with, because it's got saponins, which is like makes it a really soapy plant. So it's really good for washing with. And I have a friend in Sweden. She makes a really good midsummer ritual where she fills a bathtub outdoors with water and birch leaves, and then she lets it warm up in the sun all day, and then in the afternoon she kind of takes off all her clothes and gets into it and just has this midsummer bath with birch, which is so lovely. And that's like, she's doing that every year, like still. So I feel like that's something that we use even now. And then, I mean, I thought about it actually, because I hadn't thought about it, because I have in the out room, I've got a birch broom that stood upside down. But I've only put it like that for storage. But I think subconsciously I have put it upside down, because that we used to do that to protect the house from evil entering. So maybe it's like we have all of this underlying knowledge in a way that we still use a lot. So that's a really good example. And then maybe we should talk a little bit about juniper as well, because I think that's a really important herb. And Lindy, you love juniper as well, don't you? It's one of our favorites. We brought it up so many times. Do you want to say anything about juniper?
You have the most, technical knowledge about herbs in it. So I'm more like this scent memories thing again.
Yeah,
I do clearly remember that when walking with my grandfather as up to the ocean, like it was maybe half an hour like downhill with very steep. So we always passed this huge juniper area, but we could smell it or I can smell it like long before, and it just, again, it's such a comforting smell for me. I always, when I smell that, even if it's like gin or whatever it is, I can, I go, oh, it's the juniper. And that is, again, like, you're talking about also ancestors, but I think it's like, it reminds me of my grandfather and when we were walking to the ocean.
But it's so amazing, because I got this story with my dad and juniper, which I think I've told you about. So my dad was, he had carved this axe handle from juniper wood. And it's got it has got such a beautiful fragrant scent. But he, for weeks, kept all these wood shavings in a pile on the floor in his apartment. And then from time to time, he took a broom and he was sweeping them all out over the floor, and then back again, like an air freshener or like a cleanser. So, that's also a modern Swede story there. And then what else? Then we could do one more. Am I allowed to do one more? Because I think you probably like this one as well. Scotch pine, Pinus sylvestris, which is one of, like, it's so tall and it's like one of the biggest fern trees, and it's so common in Scandinavia. And it was like, historically, it's been like a holy tree in Scandinavia already since the Stone Age. And then later when Christianity came, it was still used, because they used the tar to paint crosses on doors to protect from evil. But then, like, my favorite thing, like folk medicine with that, is that we had this thing called put away. So if you had, like, say you had like a toothache, then you could poke the tooth with a little stick or a little nail, and then you'd put the nail under a stone or into a Scotch pine tree. And this was used so much that there was actual Scotch pine trees that was only for this. So they were called toothache pine for a while.
No.
So, yes, that's it.
So I know that from looking at your shop's website, your cult Botanica, Johanna, and so I know that you have a bit of experience with working with plants magically, and I get the sense that you do as well, Lindy. So how do these? We've kind of talked, every time we've talked about plants so far, we've talked about how they can be used magically, but what are some of your favorites, either scents that you use in magic, or specific herbs or trees and their use in magic?
For me, it's that I don't think about it maybe as it's a kind of a ritual, but for me, it's I'm using scents to go into to help with my dreams. Or my dream, but I've always been daydreaming a lot, and now I'm encouraged to daydream more, because I mean that maybe then you can go into places that you can't reach if you are fully not conscious but fully awake, if you know what I mean. And for that I use different things. I kind of just feel, I have a huge closet full of different scents and perfumes, and I kind of feel what kind of mood I am in that day, or what if I'm going to do that day, or if I'm just going to try to dive into something, let's say it's my work, let's say it's some kind of music I want to dive into, and then I can use, I'm just taking an example now, but if it's, let's say it's, for example, about a song about the ocean or whatever, then I would go and try to find something to smell that reminds me. If it's like, it can be, for example, seaweed. I've seaweed, or like just something that helps me going into his dream world. But it's a bit difficult to explain whatever. It's not really
No, but that's great. It's almost like you're having one thing that starts like almost like being this transportative.
Yeah, transportative is the right.
So it's like the scent. It's like maybe it's like almost like the trigger in a way.
Yeah, so maybe it definitely. I use it as a tool to get into something, which is a journey, which for me personally always has been to tap into something that is beyond but is totally conscious, if that makes sense. Is that the right? It's a bit difficult when English is not a language, but
no, but it's so. I think it's perfect. Like how it's like, because it's that thing about it being conceptual, I think, and how it's one of our most primal senses, and that it's quite underplayed, and how it's so powerful, but it's almost like I feel like we don't really talk about it very much, or it's not talked about very much or seen as how powerful it is. And maybe that is it, like it's beyond what we can see, and that's part of what's so beautiful with scent, like that you can't really explain it, but it does transport.
Yes, if you let it, if you're allowing it to happen, kind of, because that's a bit funny thing, but what I discovered that, but maybe that is because all the tax-free shops and everything. Many people are, what are you interested in perfumes? But that is, and then it comes out like that is a bit silly. It's not like something, but then they're not connecting scent maybe to that is actually something more than just a perfume bottle that you're supposed to smell nice. It's something about something totally different.
And somebody's portraying something that they think you would like, instead of you exploring what you need and you exploring combinations that will take you places.
Yes, I have actually something in my collection that smells 100%. What can I say? Repulsive.
Yeah.
And that sometimes that's what you need to get. It's something you can't wear that to a dinner party.
Definitely not.
Yeah, but that exists, in the. And I didn't know myself until I discovered with all the samples and stuff that it exists a lot of artists or whatever that works with sense of you, Johanna, that is pointing into just to get something other than it's just to smell nice.
Definitely. I think this idea, like, because there's so many lovely little brands now, and mainly like occult brands or esoteric shops, or even more like well-being places that are doing these kind of aroma rollers. Like some are more interesting than others, but it's just the idea of sometimes I think it's quite good with the guidance, because then it says on it a little bit like what it does. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily explain why, but so in like an uplifting blend might have citrus and these sunny smells. But then it's kind of on the bottle, because I think what you've been doing with researching and getting into perfume, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of trying, it's a lot of testing, isn't it? Because it doesn't say on the bottle what it could do. It also maybe individual, like what you're saying.
No, it doesn't say on the bottle. You can research it on online forums. And I've done that because I always do that just because I'm very, very curious. What is it? But I do try to that's not the first thing I check.
No, of course, which is why it makes it so interesting. It's like you keep the mystery there in a way, and the like intuitivity, like how working. It's like Siri, we did this thing that I sent Lauren some of my products and some of my perfumes, and I specifically didn't put anything on it, what it was inside, only the names. And then Lindy was like smelling everything and writing down what she thought was inside and what it reminded her about and stuff. And it was like such an amazing experiment, and all these stories that came up from it and all that loads of ideas that came from it. And yeah,
but then it also came up because you had made something that reminded me about my grandfather. He loved plants and he loved the nature and stuff, so he had this beautiful garden, and it reminded me of the garden. And I told Johanna that, and she said, yeah, but it's inspired from my, what did you say, grandmother's garden.
yeah.
But of course it's Scandinavian plants, so it's probably something similar. It's Sweden and Norway is not far apart. It's like where you are from Sweden and where I'm from. So
definitely, it's so amazing how it can be so spot on, basically. It's really cool.
No, but it's what fascinates me. It's like these memories of scent that everybody has. Everybody has it. So it's just about tapping into it if you want, or like. But also, like Siri said, that also it's interesting for me. Which is a really good thing, I think, is that you say to your students that you don't force them. Yeah, but lavender is relaxing. No, it isn't. If you had, like you said, Siri, like if let's say you had an abusive mom that used lavender as a perfume, that will never be relaxing for you. So it's very interesting that, and very important to kind of respect those things that are, but because it's like you can make your own space for yourself, but that space can be something else for someone else, with the scent. But now I'm just thinking like going into stuff like scent wise. Yeah. Yeah.
That would be best. That'd be great. Thank you. That'd be great.
Oh, I love it. I think it's interesting to me, Lindy, that you work in both music and with scent, because those are, two of the senses. Like we can't feel them, we can't touch them. Like sometimes scent might make you feel like you taste something, but it's these liminal spaces where you're kind of like transported into something else. You're transported into a different headspace. You're kind of moving in between worlds in a way, I think, with scent. And so that's I'm personally very excited to see what comes of your kind of collaboration together, just because I think that that's a really powerful combination. It's such a powerful combination. My last official question for you is kind of curious and a little bit, I don't know, I guess you could say it's personal. What are some of your favorite personal scent combinations? So what do you personally love to wear or use in your home? Do you have different preferences for what you would want to wear versus what incense that you burn in your home, or scents that you like in your spaces? What are your favorites?
I can start because I think my description is a little bit smaller, I think, in a way, because I And also I want to add that now with like working with Lindy, I'm actually now venturing into trying some other perfumes that I hadn't been wearing before because of Lindy. So that's really great. It's like a new side interest. But generally I normally wear, or I like to wear, scents that are a bit earthy and woody, blended with herbal florals. And I think I've always said, I don't really like sweet perfume and florals, but actually when I started looking at what I'm wearing, it is quite floral. So I think it's that idea that I think a lot of people think that floral means sweet, but it doesn't have to at all. But then I also do work, I go with like a mood so much. I do use stuff that works a bit like, and with an intention as well. Like going out, I would definitely wear something completely different, and maybe something a bit more social and attractive, so to speak. And then if I'm at home working, I might wear something a bit more like uplifting, like then I'll probably wear like citrus stuff sometimes, if depending on if the weather is quite grey, and then I will wear more citrus. But then if I just want to be completely like working on my stuff and listening to music and just having candles lit and being in my sort of creating like a cave, then I might wear like very like heavy spicy, woody, earthy scents. That's kind of it. But then I also burn a lot of like woods and incense and around the house. So every time I go home to Sweden to visit my mum, because my flat there is the neighboring flat to my mum, and she always rings the bell and says that she can smell that I'm home. So I think it's like the burning of tree. And like my new thing that I'm really gonna advance on a little bit is which they have a lot in Scandinavia, which is like kindlewood, which is tar wood. So it's kindling wood sticks which are treated with the tar. So if you light them, it's like smells like log fire at home. So I think that's really lovely.
That tar wood is actually one of my favorite scents right now.
Oh, great.
Yes, I've been burning a tar wood. I think, is it called tjärved?
Tjärved.
Tjärved.
Oh yeah, great.
Okay. I'm starting to slowly pick up some Swedish and Norwegian. But yeah, I personally love the smell of that wood, and juniper, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'll let you talk, Lindy.
The last thing to put in there, like mugwort, that as a burning mugwort, it's fantastic. And especially what you were talking about as well, like scent with dream work and evoking dreams, which has been a theme for us. So I think that's like an important one. That's like, I love that as well. Yeah, over to you, Lindy.
Yeah. I also tend to, I feel like I use my feelings a lot, also in my in the music and stuff. So I always listen to the feelings. What is my feelings now? What do I want to? So it depends, but there are some to go to sense, like the combinations you were asking for. Is, for example, I also like earthy scents. I do love a really good quality patchouli. I know that is something that many people are kind of no. But I absolutely love a good quality patchouli with, for example, the roses. And it makes me very relaxed because also all the patchouli has this almost. It just gets better and better with time, and it has this almost dark chocolate aspect to it. It is a good quality. So I love that because I also love chocolate. Simple as that. And I've been looking into plants, like different flowers, like white flowers. 10, 15 years ago, I thought I didn't like it. I thought it was too much. But then I looked into it and started to use it and said, I'm going to try to find something likable in these perfumes with the white flowers. And I started to love it, and I found out why I didn't think I liked it. It's because some of them actually contains naturally in outer nature some animalic aspect, like it smells not animal for real, of course, but animalic aspect, like it's almost like it's not a nice way to say it, but almost like poo, like a hint of it,
like a musk, sort of.
Yeah, like musky, or yeah. So, but it's like a very it smells dirty in a way. But I've experienced, but that it's something, and that goes probably also back to, that we are supposed to, in a way, recognize each other's in nature with, you're not going to be spot clean naturally, I think. Like you are going to clean yourself, but everybody has the personal scent. And from the skin and stuff. And now everybody is, we are showering every day and we are doing this stuff. But these plants also, they have some things to it that's almost like a bit musky, dirty, that has been taken away from people in the last decades or something. Like you can just go 20 years back in time and you find these things that contains these white flowers, like with this musky stuff. And I think it's actually starting to come back, because I found a lot of perfumes and I starting to do that, to have this more like a slightly off-putting things. So I've been looking a bit into that, because it makes something more daring, I think. It's about like, but also favorite, but also it's, another thing I like is actually spring flowers. Like every spring, it's like this narcissus and violets and stuff with more green scent. So it goes with if it's rainy outside, sunny, or what kind of winter, spring, summer, it differs. Long story there, but you said you were going to cut down here and there anyway, so yeah.
No, it's okay. I loved it. So I just realized that we've gone almost a full hour without talking about the upcoming release from Wardruna.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk a little bit about that now?
Yes, sure.
I know that you do a lot of kind of, the ecstatic singing in Wardruna's work. What is that process like for you? I know that so much of it is kind of in the feeling and ritual. Like, how do you kind of tap into that for a recording process?
Oh, that's a good question. Thank you for that, because that is then I can tell a bit about that, because I met Einar, many years ago, and he wanted me to. He had heard me on some kind of obscure concert, which so with me and another guy, I had this experimental music, and he has been in the audience, and he was just thinking, okay, I'm going to ask her if she want to sing, just make something here, like, and he then explained that, okay, this is the song, it's about this and that. I won't go into what it was about, because then I like getting the mystery gone, I guess. But it was a specific kind of story, and I just went into what he told me, and then went into this landscape that I thought that fitted with it, because what I've been training on, that I didn't know that before, that maybe it's not that usual, but I've been doing it since I was a child, going into this green world, going into these landscapes. So for me, it seems like I'm really there, if you know what I mean. So I can tap into kind of, and I just, if I'm going to be in the woods, I can make myself go into those woods, if you know what I mean. And the process is always like that with one. Let's say if it's for me when it's come to singing. So if it was, for example, a song about war, I could not think about that, because then I couldn't sing with full intensity. If I was thinking that it's a war with swords and stuff, because it doesn't speak to me. I don't feel any. If I see a movie with a war in it, so I just turn away. It's just boring. So if it was a song about war, I had to tap into and find another way to get the war into. I have to make, okay, maybe it's another kind of war. It's just. But it's also like a tradition that I know the Sami people of northern Norway, many of them have done for centuries, that I when I knew that my great-grandmother had to hide who she was, I felt that I felt it was so unfair that I think that was a bit started the journey for me, that to make this kind of tradition to sing more to the nature, or use the feelings to go into something. It came just quite naturally, I think, out of that. Yeah, so that's basically, it's just very simple. I just get it. Yeah, it's about this. Like, just simple word, like what do you call it, to hang it on. There's a simple. It usually doesn't, because I'm not starting the songs anyway, like with instrumentals or whatever. But I can sometimes I just get one word. Or other times I get maybe more, like lyrics or something, but just so I can start to tap into something. So did that make sense, or I'm just?
It totally makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So yeah, and then just really quickly, what are you most excited about from this album?
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. I think that was very interesting to see also that it's because we always been doing things a bit freely, but now and taking inspirations from things. But now it's also Nordic. It's joining these vocalists that are also into Scandinavian folk music, like traditional music, and that haven't really been doing that much before. Like now, it's like taking into even like newer music, like maybe 200-300 years old traditions of singing, and that is a whole nother thing than, for example, the way I am singing normally. Like, it's more inspired from the song, but it's not the same. It's a whole nother kind of musical landscape there, which is quite new for me also. So that was very interesting for me personally to see about the new releases. It differs from the rest. It's something new into Wardruna, I think.
I'm really excited to hear it. I know that this is the first album after the Rune trilogy is finished, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm excited to hear the new direction. All right, well, thank you both so much for joining the podcast. It's kind of interesting. This is only audio, so people can't see us, but we all have our candles and our plants and everything. Like, we've all created a mood here. So I personally am burning a tobacco and leather and like smoke scented candle.
That
right
sounds
now
lovely.
to set the mood. It is. Tobacco is one of my favorites. Tobacco is one of my favorites.
Yes. You want to hear what we are wearing because we have also been wearing. I know that Johanna is wearing something for the evening.
Yes, absolutely.
And I am wearing also something for you.
What are you wearing, Lindy?
I picked out what I'm going to scent this evening with. And so I was looking in the cupboard that you guys can see it, but and I found actually, because I've been in the studio for a long time now, for several days. And then I found an perfume that is actually inspired by the great Billie Holiday, for people. And this is the artist also that has not only has he is from Southern Towns, but he has not only been picking up, the flower that she used to use gardenia in her hair and when she performed, but also tobacco stuff, like, because she's tobacco, and it's imagine like how a bar will smell like, or so, like in the end of the evening. So it's hints of that. So it's not only the flowers, like all this other stuff. And I've been working in bars before, so I know how it smells like in a lot. And this is spot on.
Billie Holiday is one of my very favorites, just so you know. She's so amazing.
She's amazing, isn't she? Yeah, same here. Yeah. There you go. I knew it. I knew I should use that.
Great. Yeah, I'm totally gonna get that perfume. I've got a yellow candle that I've anointed with heather oil, so that's burning, and then I'm wearing Vivacious by Hiram Green, which is a wonderful natural perfumer.
Fantastic.
So very light and in here at the moment, even in the dark corner that I'm sat in.
Fantastic. So thank you for opening the podcast with some singing. Lindy, would you be willing to, you kind of helped us call a circle in a way for our podcast this evening. Would you be willing to open up the circle?
Yes, I will do that. But can I say just a little sentence before that, or a couple of sentences before that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I have to then say that in the beginning, because that's what I do. I just spontaneously do things here and there. So I haven't been planning the thing, that because it was only because you asked me, and that is a kind of thing. Since you asked also that's the kind of thing I do. So I will do something now that will close the circle again. No, open the circle again. Open the circle. Sorry. Okay, 2 seconds. That was it.
Thank you so much.
That's it.
And that is it for today's episode of the Heathen's Journey podcast. A huge thank you and shout out to all of my students and patrons for making this work available. If you want to become a patron and support the podcast, head on over to patreon.com/northernlightswitch. I post full moon and new moon ritual guides, rune readings for each of the turning of the zodiac season, and so much more. If you would like to follow me in between episodes, you can find me on Instagram at northern.lights.witch or on Twitter at northlightwitch. Until next time, stay weird.